Hey guys, and welcome back to the What's the Craic podcast. Today's guest, I'm so excited for you to meet. If you don't already follow her on social media, like a lot of people do, it is Izzy. I panicked there because I was like, is her surname out there publicly?
It isn't, no.
Thank God I didn't then. Okay, because I was like, Izzy, Dogtor Izzy.
Yeah, I mean, Izzy just generally flies, to be honest.
Yes.
I mean, my surname is largely impronounceable anyway, so I'm just like, you know what? Pretend it doesn't exist. It's fine.
Cool. Yeah, it's surnameless.
We are surnameless. I have one name.
I ask people all the time when they come on the show, I'm like, what would you say you do in a sentence?
Vet.
There
you
but
go,
you do
one
more
word.
than that. You do way more than that.
I do a fair few things, I'm not gonna lie. I'm basically, vet by trade, and that's always going to be my profession, my calling, my career. But I've accidentally found my way onto the social media world through a bit of blind luck and some hard work. And now I do like veterinary sort of based social media, a bit of slice of life. I cosplay quite a lot, like making cosplays.
You're very good at it.
Thank you.
So jelly.
Thank you. But yeah, I do that. And yeah, I just generally put out videos that people assumingly find entertaining because there's some followers there somewhere. I don't know why.
So Kat, who works for my management team, when I put it in the diary that you were coming, she literally texted me and went, "The vet girl from TikTok?
Oh my God, you're kidding.
I love her! Oh my God.
That's so sweet.
You're literally one of the first people she followed on TikTok.
No way. Oh
Genuinely.
my God, that's adorable.
So I was like, oh
love
my God, I love that you know.
That's so sweet.
So-
I love that. Oh, that's made my day.
There you go. So you're more known than you think you know.
It's when you get recognized on the street. That is very weird. That's really, really weird. And when you get recognized in front of friends and they have one of two reactions. They're like, that was weird. Or the more typical reaction when you know they're good friends, they bully you about it.
Oh, yeah.
That's the proper reaction in my opinion.
Have you ever been recognized on a date?
No, thank God. Because the biggest thing is I don't date. I hate dating unless
Really?
I get to know people as friends before I become romantically invested in them. I like first dates. I've done maybe one and it was awful. Hated it.
Wow.
It's just not something I really vibe with. Like dating apps and everything like that, I'm practically allergic to them. I hate them.
So fair. I used to just love them because like I think that's where I found that I was really interested in interviewing.
Fair enough.
So like
fair
I just sit down and learn the lives of these randomers.
dates, they would just practice for the podcast.
Honestly, it felt
Playing
like
the long game.
Playing the long game and date. I used to lie to people all the time and tell them I did a different job and stuff. And it's not that I wasn't going to tell them. It was like, I don't know whether or not I trust you with this information just yet.
I think we're all guilty a little bit of occasionally popping onto Tinder purely because you want the ego boost of the other fit people matching with you. That's the only time I ever used to use it.
I used to use it seriously.
Oh,
so
no. I never.
I hated whenever people would use it unseriously.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm that person.
Oh, see, because like I was like, babes, don't be matching with me unless you're going to chat. Or like I would talk to them and then they'd just ignore me, and I'm like, why did you match me then, you weirdo?
I loosely chatted with a couple of them, but it never really went anywhere because I just get awkward because I'm like, we're talking purely with the intention of like potentially dating. It just feels weird somehow. I don't know.
Yeah, my last long-term relationship I met on Tinder.
Fair enough. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. Like I have people.
My brother is marrying. He's married.
I hate for a minute that my brain went, you met your brother on Tinder.
Oh,
please
dude.
no.
I know we're chronically online, but not that bad. Jesus,
Why
no.
has that become my new favourite phrase if you're chronically online?
I am though.
So am I. We're all
I
guilty
need
of
to
it.
make a t-shirt that says I need to touch grass.
Oh, I could make you a badge.
Oh my God, that'd be amazing.
I literally
Do you have a
just got
badge
it.
maker?
I have a badge maker.
Like the kitty one?
Like, it's an actual adult one
Oh,
that makes
okay.
proper like button badges. So I could
Okay.
legit make you one.
Oh, that is dope.
Hit me up at the end of the podcast.
Yeah, so basically, no, my brother and his missus met on Tinder as well. And it was so funny because I literally went to theatre school with her. So
Was
I
this
knew her.
small town Ireland
This is
syndrome
small
again?
town Ireland, of course.
There we go. That's why. It's kind of like why when I was on the Isle of Wight, it's like really weird there. 'Cause
Yeah.
everyone
Your
knows
version
each
of dating
other.
apps makes so much more sense when you know you lived on the Isle of Wight.
Yeah, thank God the only time I lived there was when I was with somebody, so I never had to experience the horror that was. But
Yeah, 'cause
like,
that was a good time.
We'll get onto that, I'm sure. We'll get onto that.
Can I
bit of
ask
fun.
you briefly to explain the Isle of Wight to, because my YouTube channel is mostly America.
So just like what it is, or like how I ended up
How
there.
would you describe the Isle of Wight? Because like,
God awful? Is that enough?
like where, like it's a little island.
Yeah, so it's like a little rock basically, of about 100,000 residents. So it's bigger than you think, but it's also not big. It's counted as a county, but it sits on its own in the Solent, which is the bit of channel between the UK and France, but it's very close to the UK. It's not really anywhere near France.
You have to get a ferry there, don't you?
You do, and there's no fixed link, and the ferries are so expensive. For a foot ferry, a return is £36, and for a car, it can be up to 200 in peak times. So like summer when all the people go there for holiday. So getting off the island if you live there is a disaster. So
Well, that's just a nightmare though, because it doesn't really incentivize anybody to live there and work off the island.
that's why it's so stagnant, and the only people who live there typically are people who were born and bred there, and they don't know any different because they've got like sort of like island Stockholm syndrome. Islanditis is such a thing, like everyone knowing everyone and just law unto themselves. There's a rampant drug problem on the island as well.
Really?
Rampant. Oh my goodness, it's terrible. Like no one gets arrested for anything because I don't think the police can be bothered with any of it.
I mean, like also, like what else is there to do?
Nothing.
So, because that's the same with Ireland. It's like, why do people drink so much? It's like,
there's
what else
nothing
is there to
do? Yeah, there's literally nothing. I mean, for young people, it's just desolate.
Yeah.
Absolutely desolate. And like the only things to do are tourist trap things, which once you've done them once,
Why
you've
would you do
done
it
them
again?
once. And it's like, oh, you can go to a beach. There's lots of pretty beaches. It's great to visit for the beaches.
Yeah.
But you go, okay, I've done a week there. I'm never going to go there ever again. Bye. Living there for a year and a half, I cannot really fully put into words how badly that affected my mental health. Yeah. Like, so badly.
Is that how long you lived there?
A year and a half. Like, I started working there at the very, very end of 2020. Didn't start living there full time until the sort of middle of 21. And I didn't move off until start of October last year, so the 2022.
Now
So
you're a city girl.
I am now.
A city girl.
Just a small town girl. Living in a weird Tory neighborhood and I don't fit in.
Same. Not so bad now where I live, but the place before I lived there, I was on the cusp of the rich people neighborhood, right? And I had to pay rich people prices.
I'm currently
for
paying
my
rich people
council
prices.
tax.
Yeah.
And I was like, babes, I'm not seeing any benefit of
Honestly,
this.
none of this. They even my bin got stolen and they haven't even replaced it yet. And I'm really sad about it because I'm having to just use the neighbors' bins and be like, sorry, they haven't given me one yet.
Giving you, oh my God. See, at the minute I live in quite like a, there's a lot of rich people on the street and that's fine. But it's like loads of like rich families and stuff.
Yeah, there's the particular building I'm in is flats, and the people around me seem fairly normal, but the houses literally yonder cross road, when they've all got like Teslas and Rolls Royces and things like that, you're like, oh, this is money around here. And like when you go into town and you walk past 2 wine shops, a cobbler and a specialist ice cream and drinking bar just to get to the corner shop so you can get a pint of milk, you're like, oh God, where am I? Where am I? Like it's very charming and very pretty, and I find it so much more comfortable than the island, but I still feel like,
At what cost?
at what cost do I belong here? Do I belong here?
That's why I like the places that I actually chose to live in London, actually. Like, I think, like, Stoke Newington was cool.
Oh, okay.
Because it was, like, artsy,
Oh,
a lot of young people.
I trained in Camden for the first 2 years of my
Nice.
degree.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was wild. It was really busy. I think I slightly got exhausted by it because it's like
draining.
siren noise, constant. It's noise all the time.
It's like
I'm
Dalston.
yeah.
That was pretty bad.
I missed all the grass everywhere. Like just like Primrose Hill being the only grass was
Pretty
a
good grass,
bit
though.
too much. It was very good grass.
Very good grass.
You could smell it all the time.
Yeah. In Camden, you're smelling a lot of grass.
You can't get away from it. You walk down the street and you're like, oh, it's that brand again. You know, it's not even just, oh, it's there.
Dude, like I don't know. Like I love this city because I used to live pretty like I lived in Dalston for one point, which is pretty like fucking central as you can go there, and that was class. But it's also like nature. Where are you?
Where are you?
Ooh,
I just want to leave.
Yeah, honestly. But like I loved it. Like I always tell people to go to Dalston if they like New York because that's
Fair
them's
enough.
the vibes. But also I did try to live in Camden at one point. Oh my God. For like a bedroom, it was like a grand a month.
Awful.
Not including bills, by the
it's
way.
awful. Yeah, we paid a lot as students. It was rough.
Cheaper as students though than it is as an independent.
We had to go private for the second year. First year we were in halls, which wasn't too bad, but second year we just had to spend a lot of money. It was
So like how many years did you have to study to become a
I
vet?
was in uni for 5 years. Yeah, it kind of weirdly flew by. It just I remember getting to the end of 5th year and being like, why can I still remember arriving in first year so vividly.
Yeah.
It's very weird because you're very busy for the whole time. It completely becomes your life for 5 years. Like that kind of course, it's just your life.
You seem like a very applied person, though. Like when you put your head to something, like you will get it.
Stubbornly, doggedly determined, I think is probably a better way of putting it. Definitely,
Fair.
just very like, I don't know. I get my mind into, I want this thing. I know I want it. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen one way or the other. Not like, at the expense of people around me kind of thing. So I'm not built like that. But just,
yeah. You're not, what are the Slytherins? That'll like step on people to get to the top?
Definitely more of a Ravenclaw type, but just apathetic sometimes to myself, which it shouldn't be.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of important that you look after yourself, do you?
Oh, that sounds fake. What are you on about?
I
Going to
know.
bed on time, eating healthy and exercising.
That's
Why
all I
do
can think
that
of,
when
like-
I can just not eat and continue working until 3 a.m.?
Yeah, like when I look at uni though, is it possible to go to uni and like get a good night's sleep and attain all your like
Not
say
during veterinary.
No.
Not at all. Not at all. Like I would regularly be getting 4 or 5 hours. I used to fall asleep in lectures a lot of the time because I would read my lectures the night before. They always release them like a couple of weeks before. I would read them the night before and then I would be kind of prepared for what they were going to say. And if there was any areas I was like, this is weird, I need to ask a question about it. Or I need to specifically pay attention to this one thing that I don't understand. But if there were some lectures where I read it and I was like, yeah, this is actually relatively simple, I would turn up and I would probably peace out mentally after about 20 minutes and I would either fall asleep or sit there and play Candy Crush. Which is bad, but it wasn't like I wasn't doing the work. It's like I'd already done it the night before.
You'd done it the night before?
Yeah. Which worked out well because I got it done quicker than they got it done. So
How on earth, like I've always looked at those people because like, I hate it. I was in like the highest class in school, right? And that meant you were sharing a room, with people who were like prepared. And I was like, hold on a sec. Like, it's like, oh, have you done your coursework? And I'm like, no. And they're like, did you? And they're like, yeah, 2 weeks ago. And I'm like, fuck.
Oh, the big mood. And the biggest problem with me is I didn't know it at the time. I didn't know it for the entire of my school time. No one picked it up. Someone did pick it up at the start of uni and I flat out ignored it and went, nah, it's not that. And then I didn't find out until I was about 25. I have ADD. And that's why I struggled so hard during exams to focus, and I struggled so hard during lectures to focus, which is why it was easier to read things beforehand and get it done at my own speed, and get it done. And like, if I need to break in the middle, I'll be like, okay, I'm going to peace out and have a cup of tea, watch some TV for 10 minutes, then come back. You can't do that in a lecture. You can't be like, can you pause for a minute, sir? My attention span has just buggered off into the ether. Yeah,
it's hard though as well because like luckily I had a really good shrink to diagnose my ADHD because he was like, he'd asked me the questions from the test and he was like, I would explain to him, I was like, that used to be a really big thing, hence why I've put in these measures. So like one of the questions is like, do you lose your keys a lot or whatever, blah, blah, blah. I was like, babes, no, I have one place where I put the keys live there and they don't move unless I'm moving.
If the keys move, they are lost to the world.
Yeah, like I don't know where they are.
Yeah, literally. Everything has to kind of have its place. Do you ever do this thing as well? Like, I didn't realize this was an ADD thing and I was like, oh my God, this explains so much. If you need to remember something before you go out, you remember it in a specific moment and you're like, I have to take advantage of this thought right now before I forget it again. So you're like, say you want to take your lunch to work, I would forget it chronically. So what I started doing was when I would remember that I need to take my lunch to work, out the fridge it would come, onto the doorstep it would go.
Yes.
Onto the doorstep. And just anything that needs to happen, doorstep. It's like leaving like breadcrumbs.
Yeah, hands on rattling it. Yeah. Honestly, like, because the amount of times I've turned up to do a gig here, I do the online shows here, and I'll turn it and like I'll forget my computer and I'm like,
might need that.
Dude, that's literally a part of it because like I'll forget the computer because I remembered the laptop.
I have to keep some things at work because I forget them chronically. Stethoscope, forget it all the time. I have to nick other people's at work. It doesn't affect my work.
Are they
too
expensive?
much.
As like
like £100.
Oh my God,
super expensive.
Even for the animal ones.
Yeah, they're the same as medical ones. They're made by a company called Littman usually. I mean, that's it's the monopoly. It's like the Apple of the stethoscope world. But they are.
Do you ever feel
pricey.
cool as hell just like walking around with your stethoscope being like,
usually too tired and too busy focusing on getting lunch, but kind of. I get sometimes I
the
look at
buzz.
it, I'm like,
I did that. I earned this.
It's when you see a letter addressed to doctor that you go,
that's dope, dude.
That is,
but like on a plane though, I do laugh because it's like dentist, isn't it?
If there's no human,
is there a doctor?
Literally, if there's no human doctor on a plane and someone has a problem, I'm the next schmuck
You're
who's
next
got to
on
help.
call. Yeah, they're not
Literally,
going for the chiropractor.
No, like literally, if there's no doctor on board and they need help,
you can probably figure it out.
Maybe. I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of medicine applies to humans as it does to veterinary.
I imagine.
a lot of it's quite similar. They use a lot of weird different terminology. Like they insist on using inferior and superior, and we use like cranial caudal just for describing anatomical locations and things like that. It's a whole Latin weird thing.
Oh, good.
But yeah, there's not too much difference, to be honest.
Did you like always want to be a vet? Was that a thing?
Pretty much. I mean, I think I was about 8 when I started talking about it to my parents because my rabbit had a big old vaccine reaction in the back of his neck and nearly died. But he lived, and the vets were brilliant. And I was like, that's so cool. You saved my rabbit. I want to do that.
I want to do that.
Pretty much, yeah. And I got that idea into my head and I never shook it. And
I did too. As a kid, I wanted to be a vet for a period of time.
A lot of people say that. They're like, oh, I wanted to be a vet when I was a kid. Or they went through a phase. Or they're like, oh, you've got to have so many exams. Or it's like 7 years at uni. Where does the 7 years come from? Like, no one's ever had to do 7 years for veterinary.
That's doctors, isn't it?
Yeah. It's never had to be 7 for veterinary. It's always been 5. Since the dawn of time.
I think that was my go-to because like I always had animals. Bunnies was how I figured out I had asthma.
Oh,
yeah.
My sister's allergic too, so she sympathizes.
So it's like the specific fur that like bunnies and some cats have.
It's the dander, very likely.
It's not even. It's the dust.
It's the dander.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah. I thought the dander was the saliva.
Saliva is the saliva. Dander is just the sort of the general shrapnel that comes off their skin and their fur and things like that. So
I've been wrong the whole time. I thought dander was whenever the animal had the saliva on it.
That's just a salivary allergy. It's different for different people. That's why some people are allergic to some cats and not others and things like that. So because
that was my thing, is that we had like 4 bunnies at one point. Because I had 3 older brothers, so we all had a bunny.
Yeah.
And whenever we had the bunnies, because I was animal obsessed, I was always with those bloody bunnies. And then they took me to the doctor and I was like, you have asthma. And I'm like,
God.
And then he theorized that it might be because of the rabbits.
Oh, that's really sad. I'm so sorry.
I want to see the rabbits, Lenny.
My rabbit was Smokey, and he was like 11 when he finally corked it, bless him.
Oh, dude. Ours kept, we ended up stopping the rabbits.
Oh.
We went through, quite a few rabbits. But the things that ended up, we had so the main 4 that we had 2 before those, but whatever. We had these 4. So my bunny and one of my brother's bunnies died because they were outside the hutch when a fox came, and because their hearts are
delicate,
as strong as my emotions.
That's strong. Good Lord, Janet.
Yeah, no, they died pretty quick.
Yeah.
Then one of them dug its way out, and then I can't remember what happened to the third one.
Something.
But yeah, Scabbers dug himself out, which was pretty cool, in fairness.
Man was on an adventure.
Dude, I think that was a wild rabbit.
Maybe.
Because it looked like a wild rabbit.
Like that kind of a gooty colour.
And then you picked it up, and it was like...
Probably was a wild rabbit then.
I genuinely think so. I think the pet shop literally sold us a wild rabbit.
I mean, people do sometimes rescue babies from the wild, and they're like, I'm going to raise that. They're never, quite right. Every raised wild rabbit I've ever treated has always been insane. They're all psychos.
Yeah. I have this thing though when I bought bunnies that every bunny I got was the most docile thing ever.
Smokey was ridiculous. You could do anything to him.
Yeah, you're like, mate, are you okay?
I think I'm quite blessed with pets that I can kind of do anything to. Like, I've got 3 cats now, and
3 cats.
3 whole cats. And Lance is the spiciest of them all because he's an orange cat, but even then you can still do a lot with him. He just doesn't like the sound of clippers, so if you have to shave him for anything, he just has a tantrum. But the other 2, my God, you can do anything. Like Merlin particularly is ridiculous. Like, he just doesn't know how to be aggressive in the slightest. He's no brain, only fluff, goodest pure boy.
I love him. Yeah, I was saying to you before the podcast started that I like cats that are like dogs.
You'd love Merlin.
Because I don't know. I brought it up in therapy as a joke once about Conzo's cat, where I was like, I think the cat is holding up a mirror to me, Helen, because the things I don't like about it are very clearly things that I don't like about myself. It cries a lot. It doesn't like being on its own. When it is on its own, it gets sad and it scream cries. And I listed all these things that his cat has characteristically, and I was saying this as a joke to Helen.
And then she was like, "Oh no, you got a point."
She was like, "That makes sense," and I was like. Helen, I was kidding.
God damn it, Helen.
I was having a bit of therapy banter.
Yeah,
which she does tell me off for a lot, actually.
I think crying is very healthy, though. I don't
cry that much. I've got a cry
a decent amount.
I've got a cryery this year, a cry diary. That I thought
cryery.
Yeah. So at the
Mine
end
would
of the
be
year,
a whole novel.
At the end of the year, so basically I write down every time I cry and then the reason why I cried.
Oh God.
And I think it's been once this year so far.
Trouble is, I cry over stupid things. I cried once because I chipped a mug. I really shouldn't start a cryery. It would just make me embarrassed.
Yeah. No, but funny enough, the only reason I cried this year so far was I woke up and I was in pain, I think, and then I started crying.
I think that's a fairly legit reason to cry.
Yeah, but like I think it's more like when I was off my meds, I cried dumb stuff.
Oh yeah, literally just this last month, this January gone. Due to logistics of changing location from GP on island to GP in new place, they ran out of my because I'll fully say I've got bipolar type 2 / cyclothymia.
Buddies. What's the other one?
Cyclothymia is like bipolar 3. It's like the weakest form, and I'm somewhere in between. They can't really.
I didn't even know there was a bipolar 3. Look at me.
There is. It's called cyclothymia, but they do sometimes call it bipolar 3.
What is that?
So it's generally it's just much milder swings in mood. Tends to be more of a slightly more rapid cycle than regular bipolar.
But not so much of the manic episodes.
Yeah, the manias are much less, and like they don't tend to be, people with cyclothymia don't tend to be like suicidal or anything like that. They just have these fluctuations in mood that fall into a pattern.
So like diet
bipolar, yeah. Pretty much. It's like ADD is diet autism.
Oh, dude. So you don't have the H though in HD?
I don't. I just have the full just lack of.
I was so close to being
fidgety.
ADD.
I am fidgety, I think, but I'm not like. I wouldn't say I'm so hyper that it's a problem or anything like that.
Because my shrink described it as the H sometimes being mental hyperactivity.
Oh, if that's the case, holy crap, then I've definitely got H. Oh my god, the brain goes a million miles.
You have to tick like 8 of the boxes, and I ticked 5, so that was enough for them to go, ha, H. And I'm like,
fair enough. You can get over 50%, that's a pass in uni.
Yeah, right, exactly. So bipolar, ADD, and then the diet bipolar, and you're medicated.
Yes.
What do you take?
I take Lamictal, which is a mood stabilizer, and it works very, very well. And I've been on it for 3 years, but yeah, they ran out of my prescription. They didn't have the paperwork to approve my prescription, and it didn't come through for 10 days. So I went from having been on it for 3 years to cold turkey for 10 days, and it was the worst experience. It was so bad.
Dude, I can't even imagine. I had to switch meds and I cold turkeyed on one of my old antipsychotics. Worst period of my life ever.
Horrible. Like literally, it was 2 weeks of hell because it was a week of it getting worse, and then when I got back on them, building back up again. I'm fine now. Obviously, it's completely come back to where it was, and I'm like, that was a horrible period of time, and I didn't realize it was happening initially, and it was only when someone pointed out, they were like, "You've been off your meds for ages. Could it be that?" And I went, "Oh my god, you're totally right."
Yeah. Sometimes, even though you've been diagnosed with mental health conditions, you sometimes forget.
Yeah, I totally forget most of the time because I'm pretty well controlled. Like therapy does a body good.
Do you go to regular therapy?
I do. I have like distance therapy, so like I do Zoom therapy basically. And
I like the Zoom sometimes because I'm like, I can have my own tissues.
I can be in my pajamas. Yes. I can stay at home. It's very convenient if I need a session in the middle of the day and I'm working during the nights because I work as a night vet. I don't work daytimes at all. I just do emergency vet medicine. I just work at night / back holidays, but I don't do daytimes anymore. I used to do my old job. Lots of reasons really. So I really like the pace of night work. Like I love the fact that you could go in and you could potentially have sweet merry fuck all basically. You could go in and there'd be about 40 million cases you need to get to. It's really, really unpredictable. I need unpredictable to stay interested. Yeah. And I like the fact that it is better paid than day rates. It's just the way it is, which is nice. And just the way that the rota works, at least for the companies I've worked for, is really good for like just getting other stuff done. Like I can maintain a good social life and a good life with doing my other career ventures that is like the socials, my Etsy shops, the cosplay stuff, all that kind of thing, which is kind of taking off more than I expected. But yeah, so I work like 5 nights in a row of 13 hours. So they're long nights, and you get to the end and you're like, I'm tired. In my old place, it was 7 in a row. But then you get in my new place 10 days off, and the last place was 14 days off. So you get good recovery periods. You're still working the same number of hours per month as someone doing like a 9 to 5, but you just do it really intensely.
But you actually get more freedoms, because I think like trying to think back to when I had a regular life in the sense of scheduling, and I'm like, the weekends never were long enough.
No, I used to be, I mean, when I was doing day work, it was killing me. I very nearly quit veterinary, actually, in my second job. It was when the pandemic was hitting, and there was such a shortage in vets, and everyone had bought puppies, and there was just a huge, I mean, there's still a huge career shortage of vets. There's a horrible shortage in the whole of the UK. Horrible shortage. It's a constant problem. But yeah, it got so bad in 2020. I was so overworked. I was pulling 13-hour days with no overtime. I was working 1 in 3 Saturdays, from which were like 7 till 2 in the afternoon. and would still overwork if there was stuff to be done. You leave when the job is done. You don't leave when you clock off. It's not like, oh, it's 2:00, I'm just going to leave this animal and these styes on the table. You finish when the job is finished. You've got clinical notes you have to write, which you just don't have time to do during the day. So you stay behind for 2 hours a night finishing clinical notes because they're so important to write properly.
Yeah.
It was killing me because I would get home. All I could do was maybe eat something, maybe with a capital M, and then collapse into bed and then just about wake up the next morning. That's all I could do. And I was having no life. I couldn't maintain any of my hobbies. My friends were all so worried about me because they were like, what the hell is going on with her? She's just like imploding in on herself. And then thank God that was the one good thing about going to the island was I found the first night job that I did. And I got into that and I was like, yes, finally, this is the job for me.
I can do this.
Literally, it works so much better for me as a person. So
yeah, no, that's cool. At least you find it, you know what I mean? Instead of like quitting and then never knowing.
I think that's the thing. And like, as much as I hated living on the island and it was a really crap decision, to be honest, I still don't regret it. I try and live a kind of lifestyle or a life mantra where I regret nothing, purely because everything has something you can learn from it, and there's always something positive you can get out of a situation, because you can go through awful stuff, but there's always something that comes out the other end that you can learn. It may not be in that present moment you have any idea what it is. You may be like, what the hell is the point in this? Why am I having to go through this? What is the reason? And then maybe a year, 2 years, maybe even 3 years plus, might be as soon as a week after or something, you go, actually, that taught me something really important. Because like, I think easily the worst thing that's happened to me is my dad dying. Oh, yeah. He died in August of 21, and it was really sudden. He went from totally fine to gone within a few hours. Oh my God. He had a heart attack, unfortunately. It was just one of those things. It was absolutely tragic. And, you know, the family is still very much grieving over it. But, you know, you have to carry on, because he would hate for our lives to grind to a halt because of it.
Absolutely. Like, grief never goes away. You just learn how to
it's also very much this. It's not like a linear improvement. You have some days I'll be totally fine. I'll almost joke about it and everything like that. And I have a necklace with his ashes in that I wear constantly. So he's always like there with me. Yeah. But yeah, some days you just cry about it really, really hard. You hear something that will remind you of him or something. Usually when I am crying, I always think of Dad, and then I cry harder, and I'm like, stop it, you're sabotaging yourself.
Honest to God,
But at the time I was like, what the hell what am I learning from my father dying? Because
he was the purpose.
Exactly, he was my
What was the reason?
What was the reason? But literally, I was like, what is happening? Why did I need this? And it's only looking back now, almost, you know, a year and a half later, he was such a good guy to me, and he did so much for me, but almost to the point of I wasn't really learning how to be a proper, fully independent. Yeah, like I wasn't properly able to be a grown-up, because he was doing it. I never asked for him for this help. He just would do it. He was that kind of person. And I was never going to turn away help, obviously. No. And I was like, this is great. It makes my life so much easier, and I thank him for it forever. But when he passed, I lost that very abruptly, and I had to learn very quickly how to cope on my own. And then when I broke up with my ex in September of this past year, I was completely on my own. Yeah, September. It's been a while now. But yeah, and essentially I just had to learn how to do everything from scratch. And I was like, am I capable of this? Am I actually capable? I didn't think I would be, but then point proven, I moved into this new place, had to do everything completely on my own. Like, all paperwork, all actual logistics of it, all the everything.
It's awful.
Did it. And I'm like, cool. Finally, I know what that purpose was of that horrible event, was to try and make me grow up. In terms of my life, he still shouldn't have gone, in my opinion. I'm still like, there could have been a better way of learning that, seriously. But, you know, unfortunately, people don't live forever. I just wish he could have maybe hung around a little bit longer. Yeah. Because he wasn't that old. He was only 71. So.
Oh, wowzer.
Yeah. And he was just a very big personality, very big guy. But, you know, he's really proud of his family. And he was stupidly proud of me being a vet, because he was a doctor. So he was always like, we have 2 doctors in the house. And he would tell random strangers on the street. She was like, my daughter's a doctor. Did you know that? And it's like,
I love it, though.
He was so cute, honestly.
You know, it's one of those things where it's like, you know, at least he passed after seeing you become a doctor and being so proud of you.
And he had a very fulfilled life. Like, he did a lot with his life. And I don't think he was wanting for much at that point in his life. You know, he wasn't like, I've got a huge list of things left to do. Yeah. He traveled a lot. He'd seen a lot of family. He saw his first granddaughter being born. Unfortunately, he's not seen his grandson be born, because he was born 2 weeks ago now. Which is very, very cute.
Like, when my nan passed, though, it was one of these things where She kind of had like this mental list of like things that she needed to be around for before she'd ever pass away. And it was little things like watching like one of my brothers getting married, and then my cousin, whose mother passed away when she was like 22 from cancer, and my cousin was only about 2 years old when she passed away. My granny was like, you know, kind of almost like a mum figure.
Yeah.
And in her head, she'd always said like, you know, I can't be going anywhere until I see her down the aisle, you know, this kind of attitude. And I kid you not, like a week after, not even a week, because my cousin had literally just gone on her honeymoon. So it must have been like 3 days after the wedding, my nan passed away.
She was stubbornly, doggedly hanging on for that.
Yeah, she was like, I did it. Bye.
I'm a peace out now.
Yeah, quite literally. And we had
Bless
this
her.
really awkward moment of like, do we call my cousin and say like, hey, Granny's passed away, when she's on this expensive honeymoon to Mexico?
Yeah. I wouldn't know what to do then, actually. I'd have to think about that one for a while.
Like my mom and my other aunties all gathered around like a haggle of witches being like, right, what are we doing?
I don't remember this scene with Beth.
I know, right? No, she did come back though, God bless her. No, that was a hard one. Like, it's whenever you have these people in your life that left like such an impact on you, that it's like tough to see them go, but like the further away from the actual incident of it happening, the more you can kind of appreciate what they gave to you, and
course,
you know, the life that they lived as well.
Yeah, you can look at it with a lot more like fond retrospect rather than just the pure pain of it. Yeah. I see that a lot with people's pets and things like that. You know, people get unbelievably attached to their, well, I mean, it's not even that unbelievable. I am super attached to my cat. And like when Merlin eventually goes, I mean, he's 5 now, so I've made him promise me that he will last around for at least another 10 years. But like
my old vocal producer, no, I say old vocal producer, he's still my vocal producer. He had a cat that lived to 22.
I mean,
I was 21.
That would be sensational if you could get to that old, but unfortunately his pedigree, which usually implies probably going to be a little bit young. He's a Turkish Angora. They're usually pretty healthy, but I think 15's realistic for him. Yeah. So I'm like,
I was 21 and the cat was 22.
That's insane.
I was like, dude, your cat's older than me.
When I started training, I would come across these cats, like, because I had to do work experience before I went to uni, and I would be regularly seeing these old ass cats. Yeah. Who were older than me, and I'm like, this is a weird experience, you know?
Literally. So do you work with like all animals? Do you even do equine?
I don't know. I know you're a horse girl.
I'm a horse girl.
You are a horse girl. I do not have equine like passions, as it were.
Fair.
I think because I never was a horse girl, you have to be a horse girl. So
you've always had to have an interest
in that culture. You have to understand the horse people, because they can smell fear from a 10-mile radius. They see 5'4" me coming up to their big shire, and they're like, you're not holding it, the vet will hold it. And I was like, okay, cool.
Yeah, no, they're like a bit of a beast in a lot of ways. Like, if you're not, it's more just about confidence. Yeah. If you're not confident around them, like,
and I just wasn't. I never gained the confidence. I tried, but I just couldn't get there.
The horses can smell it.
Oh, totally.
So then they play silly bugger.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, they're like, oh, you're afraid of me? Well,
I'm gonna have fun with you.
Yes, quite literally.
But yeah, and like farm was never really my thing either. So I never to go near cows, sheep, pigs, anything like that, because it just never really interested me. A lot of that's herd health, so you do a lot of things on a macro scale, and I'm like, I like the individual, I like the investigation.
That would be my only plus side though of doing like the herd animals and stuff, is like, it's not somebody's bloody dog that they've lived with for 12 bloody years. It's not their best friend.
Yeah, the farmers can be a lot more pragmatic, so there's less of that emotional.
They're used to it.
Yeah,
they still get sad, but they're
realistic.
Yes,
that's the thing. Their expectations are usually a lot more realistic. There's obviously tension with things like tuberculosis scans when people have a positive result. That's a lot of tension,
because that means like the whole fucking, a lot of them
the positives go to slaughter. They have a lockdown. They can't trade anything for several months. It's a whole thing. It's really bad for them, and I do feel for them when they do have a positive reactor, because
that's their livelihood.
Yeah, pretty much. So yeah, that gets tense, but apart from that, they are realistic about stuff, whereas pet owners, sometimes the lack of like any kind of realism.
It gets so badly named, and it's like, it's especially in America, I do find it a little bit tickling, right? Because the vets get such a bad name in America, but then people are happy enough to not have a public healthcare system. Yeah, and it's like
wild.
The other doctors get paid.
Yeah.
Why did the vets not get paid?
Yeah,
guys?
Yeah, and we get paid less. I mean, have for like an example, when I first graduated vet school, have a guess what you think my salary was
for a year.
For my first year as a new grad vet.
18 grand.
Not quite that bad, but
yeah, because that'd be awful. But I was expecting it to be bad.
A vet nurse would probably be in their training years is like 16 grand. and they do the same level of hours, and they arguably do just as good at work as we do. You know, it's just slightly less academic, but it is still incredibly important, and we would die without vet nurses. I love vet nurses so much.
It's nurses in general, do you know what I mean? It's just
Honestly.
Yeah, you don't have the bloody doctor's degree, but 20 years of being a nurse, you know, bloody hell, there's a lot of stuff you learn.
Always make friends with the nurses. If there's any vet students watching this podcast, make friends with your nurses. Can't express that enough. But yeah, my first salary was 28, and it didn't change much beyond that for about 3 years. So, you know, and I'm again pulling those 13-hour days with huge emotional trauma and huge expectations and struggles from clients, and basically doing a very, very clinically demanding job as well.
Emotionally demanding as well.
Oh yeah, totally. Like you have to learn very quickly to compartmentalize yourself. So you turn up to work, you're going to euthanize something. And especially doing out of hours, I spend a lot of my time euthanizing things. Like I would say there was one day, my record, it sounds awful calling it a record, but my all-time high of things I euthanized in one shift was 6 different animals. So, and 3 of them were back to back. Yeah. Yeah, it was rough. That was a rough day.
Like, you guys deserve the title of doctor.
Couldn't even cry. That's the worst bit. I just got into my car at the end of the day and just sat there and went, well, that was a day.
That was a day.
You go into total shutdown mode. And the trouble is you get the horror of compassion fatigue, where you just are so burnt out by it that you can't feel that empathy anymore. You just, it becomes
You're not allowed
clinical.
to. Your brain goes no.
Yeah, it just goes numb. It just goes, it's the way of coping. People either break or they go numb, and it's trying to maintain some balance in between. That is difficult.
Yeah, it's like dissociation obviously gets a really bad rep because it's not a good thing to go through, but sometimes your brain, like sometimes I get dissociated, which basically means like you're not in touch with your feelings, you can't feel your feelings, and sometimes it happens and I'm like, thank you, actually. I you know what, you read the situation, I wouldn't have been able to handle that.
It's like survival instinct almost, isn't it? Yeah, that's pretty much what you go into in the veterinary world when you have those kind of vibes and things like that. And then it's a lot. Add to that my very strange situation that is not very common. There are social media vets, of course there are. There's some very successful ones. Kat the Vet is a very prime example. Dreddy Vet is another friend of mine who does some social media stuff as well. But I don't know any other people who are like major in, I say major, that sounds awful, holy crap. But people who like have a significant-ish following on things like TikTok or whatever, or YouTube, that's very rare. And it's totally unknown water. It's totally unknown water to know how to tread it. You don't get taught about how to deal with that at uni, apart from just being like, you've got to be super careful at all times what you put on the internet, because, you know, it's got to be deemed as professional. You've got to, you know, you've got to behave, basically. You've got to, you know, there's certain things you can't do. There's certain things you can't say, because you can't bring the profession into disrepute. So, you know, it becomes very challenging because you feel like you can never fully like let loose on social media, even though if you want to.
It's like being a teacher. Pretty
much. I think being a teacher is probably somehow worse because you really are so controlled online when you're a teacher. Literally. But
my favorite is like all the teacher friends I have, they all change their name on Facebook to
their
Gaelic names, so their Irish names,
fair enough,
so their students can't find them.
I do know someone whose surname is Hiccup, so she changed her name on Facebook to Throwdown, and I thought that was fantastic.
No, everyone in our friendship circle just changes their Facebook names.
Yeah, I mean, mine is my full name, but then again, my full name isn't out there, so it doesn't.
I love that you did that. No one told me that going by your real name is a bad idea. I love that.
I got rid of it as soon as there was an inkling of people starting to follow me, because my Instagram name way back in the day did used to just be my full name. Well, my nickname and my surname.
Yeah.
And
smart.
Yeah, I changed it very quickly. I changed it to something temporary for a while, and then when I graduated, it changed to Dogtor Izzy because it's a play on dog and doctor. So intelligent. There's a lot of vet accounts on Instagram who are called Dogtor in their name and things like that. It's nothing that original, to be fair.
No, but whatever. It's a bit more fun than being doctor.
Oh, yeah. And besides, it just makes it more obvious that you're a vet rather than a human doctor or something like that.
True. Yeah.
Because there are some social media doctors out there who are like they're like a massive inspiration, and they help and guide me somehow through like how they function with being clinically practicing and doing social media. So like I don't know if you know someone called Dr. Mike.
I do, but I kind of stopped watching him after the controversy.
There was the COVID controversy, but the way he conducts himself online,
he's very good. Yeah. No, he's
very good,
and in the media and all that kind of stuff. I think he's a good,
he's such a good benchmark for people who want to do that kind of thing, and that's something I really want to do. Yeah,
I do. I just kind of stopped watching him after that. I still watch one or two of his videos. It was just kind of like, it's that parasocial relationship bullcrap.
Yeah.
You know, I just fell into this, like, this guy is completely trustworthy and stands by all of his words, and then it's
Yeah.
like, oh wait, you're partying on a yacht with loads of beautiful women in the middle
Yeah.
in the middle of the peak of
Like
COVID.
literally in the middle of it. I was very disappointed when that happened.
But everybody's a person.
I was just about to say that
Everybody-
everyone is flawed and everyone is entitled to make mistakes.
Absolutely.
And everyone is entitled to grow and learn from those mistakes,
Mm-hmm.
provided they own up to them. At least he did when he put out his apology video. He did own up and say, yeah, I screwed up. This is why I thought it was okay, but now in retrospect I realize it totally wasn't, and I'm really
Mm-hmm.
sorry. And considering the transgressions some social media influencers have done, his
Absolutely.
is fairly mild.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, that's the thing. It's like, I still would watch his videos if you know what I
Yeah,
mean.
that's the thing. And I would love to be able to, I mean, that's the plan for this year. It's kind of been my New Year's resolution project for this year, is continue more with the cosplay stuff and try and really push myself with that one. I'm currently in the midst of doing a very complicated one, which is still kind of hush hush. I'll show you.
Yeah.
I'll show you later.
Nice.
But yeah, it's I really want to get going onto the YouTube kind of side of things and do basically vet content that's similar to his. I don't want to just like rip off his brand and rip off his content.
No, but it's a good it's a good content
inspiration,
like
yeah.
layout approach.
It's
kind
also
of
an
vibes.
untapped kind of niche because there isn't a vet doing that kind of thing currently. At least I haven't found one.
You haven't found one, just smash it, do
So I'm
it.
just like, screw it. I want to do this really badly. And it would be nice one day to eventually be like more part-time with my vet work, just because I love doing it, but it is exhausting.
Yeah, or even do
yeah.
what a lot of California vets do, where they
Locuming.
they just do home visits.
Yeah, that's definitely a thing. Or locuming, where you just literally pick and choose what practice you go to,
Yeah.
you pick and choose when you do it, and you get paid pretty good amounts because it's done at short notice. It's basically replacing missing staff.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
all
that's
of that
that's
kind
the
of stuff
thing.
is always possibilities and things. So it's like
That's the thing. There's so much you can do with a veterinary career and degree. There's not like you're not pigeonholed into just being a small animal day vet.
Yes.
There's so much more you can do with it. Like some people branch off to teaching, some go back to uni, some go into research, some work for the government. I wouldn't want to do that. That's not really my kind of thing.
yeah,
Like
no.
for DEFRA and things like that. I'm not a paper pusher. Never have been. Couldn't
No.
do an office job. That's not for me. But
Do you know what? I always laugh though. I think I'd be kind of good at an office job.
No,
like
depended on the office, I think. For you.
Yeah, I
you
like
need one of those
structure.
offices that's got like a relaxed atmosphere, but someone who could still be like, no, we need to do this thing. You know.
I'm good with rules though.
Okay, fair
I
enough.
am. I'm just living a life where there isn't really a lot. So like I kind of make the most of it.
I'm such a baby, that's the thing. I get really worried about breaking rules and upsetting things. So like I have usually a bi-yearly, so twice a year, yearly breakdown about social media, and I'm like, I want to delete everything. What if it's gonna ruin my career? And then I get out the other side of it and I go, you're being stupid. Stop it.
Yeah, but it's fair to be concerned about it. Like if
I
you've got a
constantly
real
ask.
job, it's
Yeah.
like, you know, bloody hell, yeah.
Well,
It's
the
like,
last 2 or 3 jobs that I've been in, because I've been in 4 vet jobs total, and the social media thing started at the end of my first job, like totally accidentally. It blew up pretty much overnight due to one TikTok. It was wild. But yeah, it's
just a valid concern.
yeah, it's a valid concern. And in the interviews, I bring it up and be like, just so you know, I'm completely transparent. I'm on TikTok. It's quite well known. I have a social media following. I do a Patreon. There's not adult content on there, but it's like soft glam, very soft glam. And yeah, here are my usernames. Feel free to investigate.
Look if you
I
want.
have nothing to hide. If you're not happy with this and you do not think I would fit your employment, then I need to know now before I accept a job with you and you find out.
yeah.
You know, and they've all been absolutely fine with it. They've all, if anything, they've just been like, huh,
That's
fair
fun.
enough. Yeah, pretty much. Like, I think I've been lucky. I've found places that are accepting of that. And at the end of the day, if you find somewhere that's accepting, that's the kind of place I want to work.
Yeah.
I don't want to work somewhere where someone's like, oh, that's weird. Or, you know, they don't even like it at all. They're like, oh, you need to stop doing that.
Yeah.
Like I did work experience one place and they didn't like the fact I had piercings. So at the time I didn't have this one or this one, but I had ear piercings. Like I've got a string.
Oh yeah, you got a decorated
For
ear,
the
dude.
benefit of the camera, I have a bit of a sparkly ear, and they made me take everything out
Ah,
because they were like, "That's not professional." I'm like, "Why?"
but why isn't it?
Exactly. I think it's a load of bullshit, basically.
Luckily, a lot of that stuff's
like
dying
tattoos.
out though.
This wouldn't have flown
Yeah.
a few years ago in the vet world.
Well,
because it's
a
on
lot
your
of
arm.
that is changing because even the really strict airlines and stuff are letting
Yeah.
people wear their short sleeves with their
People
tattoos.
are finally allowed to actually be able to express themselves in ways that are ultimately not harmful to the job.
Yeah.
Like hair color. What on earth difference does that make in your ability
I
to be able to
know.
do an operation?
Like in school as well, they're like, you can't have your hair wild colors, and you're like, but like, why though?
It's like wild to me that it's so socially acceptable that people can go home and drink every night, and it's just seen as this whole lol, another glass of wine, not drinking alone if the cat's home. But yet, if you dye your hair pink, oh my god, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, I think more, especially more for like the kids, right? Like teenagers and whatever. Like, you're a teenager it is the last time in your life you'll be free before having a job for the rest of your life, where you may
Literally.
have to bend to those social constructs.
Let rip.
Let them have a bit of crack,
Let
dude.
them make some really dumb decisions, so they'll learn why it's a dumb decision, and then they will be less likely to make a dumb decision that's going to have more impact on them as an adult.
Because like no one takes kids seriously anyway.
No.
Like I remember, because I was a kid and adults were always in my business. And it's like no one's taking me seriously. So like why can't I have pink hair now?
Yeah, literally. Let me do the pink hair phase now, and then I don't need to do it later. Or like,
Exactly.
let me get this piercing now or whatever, and then I don't need to do it later.
And
or
I can
something
take
like
it out. I might be bored of it then in 5 years.
that. Yeah, that's a good thing about piercings. That's why I like them so much, because it's like you get bored, take them out.
Yeah, I had my septum done like twice.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Never
what the
had
first
my
time
septum done.
he busted it. He pierced my cartilage.
Oh no, they shouldn't do that.
Got my cartilage pierced.
Rip.
Woo! And then I
That
got
is
it
so
done
painful.
later on as well. I think it was
times.
more like an act of rebellion, because I was obviously being known for like being such this little innocent flower fairy thing that like I
Yeah.
liked that I could like fold it down and then it's like, ooh, I'm so badass.
Look at
And then I
me.
could go to work
Pop it
and
back
do
up
like
again.
I remember literally like going and doing like a gig at Wembley and being like la 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 la, and then going off stage and being like bam,
Budding.
attitude. You
Look at me,
know,
I'm hard.
yeah, I'm 17, I'm an adult.
I'm so hard about it.
Yeah, literally.
But yeah, it's kind of wild, the whole professionalism vibe thing. And again, with social media, you have to be so careful, which is why it's difficult when your partner or whoever you happen to be dating or something like that happens to be in a job that is very much not the social
That
norm.
is true. Yeah, you dated a spicy worker.
I dated a spicy worker for nearly 2 years, and it was very difficult. And unfortunately, that relationship did turn very toxic. Very
Want to
toxic.
talk about that? Can we talk about that?
Yeah, we can talk about some of it anyway. Some
There's
of
probably
it's-
educational
yeah.
bits in it.
Yeah, there's things, again, you learn things from these things. And
course.
I think I've changed a lot as a person for the better because of the things that happened. Still wish they hadn't. But it still had
course.
some. It still had.
But
some
did
things
you
that came out of
die?
it. Exactly. Did you die? Did you die? My favorite phrase ever. Try anything once, except heroin.
Yeah, don't do that. Yeah. Unless you're Sammy. Sorry, Sammy.
Oh my goodness.
No, I love her. We love her.
Yeah, we do. I mean, I would die for Sammy. Take a bullet. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
But yeah, basically, what happened in the relationship is it just. I think
It started off pretty normal, didn't it?
it started off great. We were really happy. And
They
then-
always do.
Yeah, we were in the pandemic though, and he was paying lots of attention to me because we couldn't go anywhere. But then it became very obvious that he preferred his friends over me quite a lot of the time. And then it felt like he was just getting very bored towards the end of the first relationship, and I could feel some distance growing and knowing what's going on. And then he drops the bomb on me in January of 22 that he wants to be polyamorous, and if I don't want to be polyamorous with him, he's going to break up with me. Like, out of nowhere that came out of.
Oh my God. And like,
Yeah.
I have nothing against polyamory.
Me neither. I think
If
it's
it's-
fantastic.
Two consenting partners
Yeah.
with good emotional
Communication. You have to talk all the time when
A
you're in
lot.
poly. You have to be so good at communicating. You have to be a really, really solid foundation to make it work. And personally, I think going from monogamous to poly is very hard anyway. I think starting out as poly, like you go into it on the same playing field.
on the same page.
Yeah, it's a lot easier. And, I'm not like... I think, to be honest, in my heart, I am monogamous. I just don't think I have it in me to probably
You're the same
be
as me.
poly. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like,
Not
to people that
totally
are doing
closed.
it and
Yeah.
they're loving their lives, I'm like, cool.
I love seeing the successful poly people because I'm like, you're breaking the social norms. You're doing something that makes you so happy. Literally, good for you.
Yeah, and I'd rather the people that are like leaning towards poly find other real poly people, and then that means that like they're not going to date someone who's not poly and then end up maybe potentially cheating. Not that all poly people cheat or anything along those lines, but like that, and then also you're not dragging, not to say dragging, but like if someone didn't join the relationship as poly, then the chance, it's not impossible, but the chances of it being truly authentically polyamorous is very slim unless you're very
Yeah.
lucky. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, totally.
again, there's no rules to these things, but I just think probability wise.
Yeah, realistically. And obviously, I really didn't want to, but I didn't want to lose him at the
Yeah.
time. And
That's the thing that I know that
Yeah.
happens so much. They're like,
it's like being blackmailed into it essentially, and it was awful. It really, really took a massive knock to my mental health. And I said I would try it, didn't really enjoy it, and then it all fell apart anyway. And summer was a very long, difficult summer, and then we finally realized this was not going to work, amongst other things that we can't go into. So we eventually called it time in September. Well, I say me called it time,
yeah.
because I was like, I can't do this anymore. I just can't.
yeah. Because I remember we were at a
Yeah.
party together, and I'd just broken up with my partner, and you'd been like a month away from Chancellor, so
Pretty much, yeah. And I was like, oh my God, that was the best decision. It was a horrible decision to make, but it was a really good decision to come to because it was so much healthier.
Yeah, because I remember talking to you, and I was like, I was in the mourning stage.
Yeah.
I was like, I had to break up with somebody I still love, and you're like, fuck them, screw them, you don't need a man. And I'm like,
You don't need no man.
I'm literally like, oh, okay.
Bless your sweetheart. You were literally like really all delicate and everything. I was like, listen, you're so freaking strong on your own. You don't need him.
It was just so funny because I think at that party, everybody knew that we'd broken up, and then nobody wanted to mention it.
Literally. And then there's me just there like, fuck it. It's fine.
Yeah, apart from the one or two that were like, that either didn't know, or they were like, they were good friends with him, and they're like,
Yeah.
I'm just checking in on you.
just making sure you're okay.
Yeah, like being really sweet about it.
Yeah.
But for most of the conversations, everybody just kind of ignored it.
Yeah.
You know?
But yeah, I mean, out of that unhealthy dynamic, again, it's taught me a lot about lots of different things. I'm still
There's a
working
term
through
for
a
it,
lot.
though, isn't there?
Mm?
There's a term for being in a poly relationship and the person kind of using it in a bad way, isn't there?
Well, I mean, if you drop it on someone where you literally just say, I want to be poly or break up, that's called polybombing.
Oh.
So when you drop it on someone like that, it's a polybomb. So and that's
Yeah.
exactly what happened. If you mistreat a boundary within a poly dynamic, it's still cheating. Like it's just a different way of cheating.
Yeah.
Because I
That's
suppose
the
in
thing.
monogamy, people have different manners of what counts as cheating. Because some people are like happy for their partners to do things like watch porn and things like that.
Yeah.
Porn. Or they're happy for them to, hang out with female friends and things like that because they're happy with that. Some people get really upset about that kind of thing and they're like, no, that's a boundary. I don't want you looking at porn or something like that. I
think my one that I find the most, I want to smash my head against a brick wall is when I've been dating people and I'm like, so like emotional cheating.
Oh my God.
And they're like, I'm like, so like the whole idea of like work wives and stuff like this,
Yeah.
like having a work partner and stuff. I'm like, no, like I'd rather you sleep with your coworker and then tell me rather than for fucking 10 years or something you have this weird emotionally complicated relationship with
Yeah.
someone else who instead of coming to me and talking about your emotional issues
Yeah.
and your needs and
Yeah.
la la la, you're talking to another woman. Like
There's nothing wrong with having a best friend who is of
Absolutely
the
not.
opposite gender and everything like that, but it becomes very different when you start becoming emotionally much more invested in someone who isn't your partner, because ultimately your partner should realistically be your priority in terms of emotional connections, because that's the person you're building your future with.
absolutely.
And to be closer with somebody else makes you question A, what's going on there, and B, what's going wrong with the partnership, and you need to talk about it, but people never talk about it.
Yeah,
people
but
are
it's
terrible at communicating as a general rule.
It's kind of like that thing of like, if somebody just like cheated on you like physically, that's one thing because it's like, okay,
Still
you were,
bad, but
you were
like,
thinking with
yeah.
your second brain, whatevs. Like all the blood went somewhere else, and you weren't thinking with your first brain.
I am now going
Okay.
to call that forever.
Yeah, because it does a lot of thinking when it shouldn't.
It does a lot of not thinking, if you
Yeah.
get what I mean. It does a lot of leading.
Yeah.
Magnetic animal pull.
So like that kind of, there's like a almost like a weird kind of, maybe I'm just like too nice and I'm just like, oh, like there's a bit of like a primal understanding of like, okay, you gave in. But to have like, say like a few months of like emotional cheating and then maybe physically cheating,
Yeah.
that hurts. Because it's like, not only did you sleep with that person, you also have an emotional connection with that
Yeah.
person. That
It's
feels
like,
weird.
at the end of the day, relationships do sometimes break down, and sometimes they just aren't where they were. And if you find yourself pulling towards somebody else, there's nothing, quote, wrong with that, but you have to understand that you can't do both. And you're like, okay, I'm emotionally pulling to this other person. I need to tell my partner that I'm not close to them anymore, and I need to call it time on this partnership, because clearly it's not something that
Why are
works
people
for me
so bad
anymore.
at that?
Just be honest.
That's
and
my
just talk
biggest pet
about it.
peeve is like when people like, yeah, like,
So I think people are so worried about their partner's reaction or anything, and it's like, well, they're going to find out eventually one day. So
like,
just
if you
be
love
open
them-
about it to start with.
if you love them, just leave them.
If you love them, let them go.
Yeah, because if you're doing these things that are going to hurt them like that, go.
Yeah.
Just if you genuinely love them,
Yeah.
don't be selfish.
Yeah. It is. There's nothing wrong with looking out for yourself, but you also have to look out for this other person at the same time, and you have to make sure that their needs are being continued to be met. And yeah, you'll probably hurt them by leaving them, but you'll hurt them less by leaving them than you would by carrying on for ages and dragging it out and everything like that, and it just being a whole thing. Like, especially if you don't tell them at all and you keep it completely hidden, and then they find out, it's the betrayal that hurts so much more. It's
Yeah.
that hurts so much more.
I've always
Especially if you're
said
like,
it.
no, there's nothing between XYZ and
Oh.
me. And then there is, oh my God.
It's the person you
it's
told me not to worry
awful.
about.
Literally
like,
that.
stop it. It's
worse.
I have a thing as well where, like, if you have cheated on someone, and you are planning to leave them, when leaving them, don't tell them you cheated.
No.
Because for the rest of their life, they're always going to be sat there going, like, why wasn't I enough? What could I have done to be
the
better?
damage it can do is bad.
Yeah, and it's like, if you don't need to tell them, just be staunch on the fact that you want to walk away. And you don't need to tell them that you cheated on them, but just leave.
Yeah, even the polybombing thing, to be honest, it made me sit there for a long time. And to be honest, I'm still working through a lot of it, is that I wasn't good enough. What was wrong with me? Why did I not give him enough? Why did I not do enough? What was I doing wrong? And I'm still going through that with my therapist and things like that, and just being like, you know, what was... He's basically saying that it's not your fault and you were enough. But I was like, I need to figure out if there was things I could do, because I'm not perfect.
No one is perfect.
Nobody's perfect. And it's like identifying what I didn't do well and what I can improve for a future relationship, if and when that happens.
No,
you know?
Everyone can improve and everyone can be better, but just because somebody turned around to you one day and was like, I want to be poly, doesn't make you the problem in the relationship.
No, but it's still like, it's still sort of, you know, there's still things to learn. Always. We're always changing people, and we always have the capacity to learn. If you turn around and be like, right, that's it, I'm fully matured, I'm a fully evolved Pokemon now, you're like, no, that's not how this works.
No,
everyone's
absolutely not.
Always learning and growing.
But it's more like just realizing that it was not
It's
you.
realizing that I'm not blaming myself, but instead looking at it retrospectively like, okay, it's not your fault at all, but, you know, what can you do just in general as a partner, what you can do to be better? You know,
yeah, there's always learning lessons that you should take from any relationship.
Then I'll be much nicer for whoever comes next, whoever that may be.
Like, honestly, doing the work so then it doesn't carry into your next relationship is such a big thing.
And literally, you've got to make sure you're completely emotionally there. It takes time. It takes a bit of time.
Yeah, I remember dating someone though once, and then that was the person that did cheat on me.
Oh.
And
dear.
we were watching a show about people like exploring their like bedroom activities, and one of the couples wanted to do like a invite another person in kind of thing.
Yes.
And then it naturally came up in conversation with this person, like, would you ever do that? Because, like, I'm openly not straight. I'm not fully straight.
Hello, bi queen.
I'm bi queen. I don't even know.
I call myself comfortably bi, but I fully understand, like, the queer label for people who
Queer,
just don't
yeah.
have a label for
But then
it.
queer is a difficult one, because then people think that means you don't like the opposite sex. I'm like,
It's just a miscellaneous. I think sometimes it's just easy to be like, well, I'm not straight.
that's literally been my thing for the whole time. So anyway, they said, like, would you ever be down for that? And I used to, in my head, obviously want to do that. And I was like, that'd be kind of fun. And then from that point on, because they did that thing, I was like, no, I'm not into it, actually. I don't want to. In my head, I'm like, I love women. I'm like, no, I just don't think that's what I'm into anymore. It's not really my vibe. Being like, I will punish you for what you did inadvertently.
Literally,
No fun times for you.
To have some problems with this.
Literally, I was like,
The One Piece.
No.
I want problems always.
Quite literally. But when we broke up, though, I remember, like, I did a TikTok about it, and I swear to God, the amount of men and stuff, and women, and babies in my DMs
Lembies.
being like, trying to almost play the shoulder to cry on.
You would not believe, after I announced the breakup, how many people were trying to slide in and are still continuing to slide into my DMs without knowing anything about what's actually going on with my personal life right now, and not knowing what the hell I'm doing, and not knowing anything about this. They're still pushing their luck. I did like an anonymous Q&A session on Instagram recently, because I was like, I haven't done one for ages.
Dangerous.
There were about 40 people saying, can I take you on a date? Or can I? And I'm like, you're a stranger. This is so weird. Do you not think this is weird? Would you go up to a stranger in the street who's never met you before and be like, hi, do you want to go on a date? You'd be like, no, bugger off. So it's very, very weird. And it's just very
feels
strange.
straight. It does. I was like, I'm fresh out the womb here, lads, of that last relationship.
There's still a lot going on. And again, they don't know what's going on in my personal life. For all they know, I may already have met somebody. I'm not saying I have or I haven't or anything like that, because again, that kind of part of my life is, I'm keeping as closed off as possible now. Like,
you're doing to me.
The parasocial relationship thing I had with my ex, where everyone knew our business all the time and there was no privacy, damaged me much more than I thought. Because, I just felt completely... My privacy was just being constantly violated.
I'm so monogamous. I don't even want the internet to know if I'm dating somebody, because then you own a piece of them and they're mine.
Exactly. And it's just not healthy for people to constantly know your business. There's nothing wrong with being like, I'm in a relationship or I'm single, but that's all they really need to know.
Yeah, I don't even say that. I don't even bother, because once people know that I'm in a relationship, I have a tendency to overshare, like even anonymously about the person I would be seeing and stuff. So, but I do remember whenever we broke up and that happening, and I was like, I I have to do a lot of emotional work right now. I have a lot of healing to do because a lot of the times people that have been mistreated in relationships, like I have been, it's like, yeah, what happens is when you jump straight in, it's like the abused can become the abuser.
Yeah.
And I never ever wanted that to happen.
Yeah.
So I remember people like asking me about it, and like some people shooting their shot and stuff, and I was like, I don't even want to look at the person. Don't even look at me. Don't even perceive me.
Anything right now.
Yeah, I'm like, no, I don't. I remember especially like because a guy did it. They were like someone I knew and stuff like that. Like shooted their shot.
Shooted their shot.
Shooted their shot. And I was like, what makes you think I want to even be touched right now?
I have so little attraction to you right now. It's like the Sahara.
Yeah.
Please do not go anywhere near me.
Literally, I was like, just everybody think of me as asexual for like a year.
Like literally, just don't go near me.
Ignore my thirst traps and think of me as asexual.
You can look at me, but do not touch me. I am artwork. I am the Mona Lisa right now. I'm behind the glass pane, but you can appreciate me.
Like honestly, the concept of jumping into something, I was like,
literally,
away, get in the sea.
Mine was a bit weird because I think definitely looking back, I fell out of love in the middle of summer. Like I definitely did. I just was clinging to this idea that it might come back or I might be able to fix things because I'm a huge fixer and I don't prioritize myself. And that's something I've realized horribly throughout all this is I very rarely prioritize myself.
What are my needs?
Literally,
What do I need?
literally, I'm like, I don't know. Like, my therapist said that to me. It was like, well, you need to find out your needs. And I was like, I don't know.
What do you mean? I have to know what I want?
And I was like, I don't know, maybe money, realistically, long term. And he was like, is that a need or a want? And I'm like, oh God, that's a want, isn't it? Oh,
yeah,
no.
I know. It's awful.
Oh no, I don't know what my needs are, my dude.
Therapy's all fun and games until they make you do stuff.
Oh, I hate it when they make you look at yourself. Like, how dare you do your job?
Gross. Mine's just so strict. She yells at me sometimes. She doesn't
my
yell.
My therapist is so nice. He's so gentle. I love him. I absolutely love him.
No, I need the therapist like I have because I've had so many lovely therapists, but that doesn't work.
I need someone who's going to be nice to me or I'll cry.
When I got BPD, a lot of the time psychodynamic therapy, talk therapy, doesn't work.
Okay, fair.
Because they're not getting called on what they're doing.
Fair
so
enough.
I'll say something and she's like, hold on, say that again. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, she'll call you up on it like no holds barred.
Like literally. And then she's like, I would get like upset or annoyed at her having a reaction like that. And then she's like, well, why did you bring it in here? Did you not think you're going to get challenged on it?
Yeah. Oh, that's a hard one to think about.
She's like, do you not think I care about you and your well-being enough to
Yeah.
challenge the fact that you're actively hurting yourself? I'm like,
as hard as it can be, I genuinely think therapy is one of the best things that's ever happened to me. And again, start of this year, had it not happened, I wouldn't have got into therapy because that's why I went to therapy initially, was to cope with what was going on.
Yeah.
And I carried on with it and it's been life-changing. And I cannot express this enough. I think everyone should go to therapy.
Yeah. No, I had a mother.
Especially guys.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Unfortunately. Well, my mum has a firm belief and she's always held it. And she always said it to us growing up. She was like, every teenager, once they become a teenager, needs a therapist for at least a little bit. Just a little bit.
I think she's right.
And I do. But like having a mum that was very much on that mentality meant that whenever I did need to get help, she's like, all right, let's go.
And it's not like therapy is something for crazy people. It just isn't. It's somebody who's
No.
literally nurturing your thoughts because it isn't a thing for crazy people
My
or for anything
favorite
like that.
is people that think therapy is only for the mentally ill.
Yeah.
When they say that, I look at them and go, you're actually way more mentally ill than me. I'm just doing something about mine.
Yeah.
And I always tell people as well, they're like, how do I know if I need therapy? I'm like, do you know what? Go to your nearest and dearest, okay?
And
tell, no.
Oh?
There's a little thought experiment. You go, you tell your friends and your family, whoever's close to you, and you go, I've got a therapist. I'm going to therapy. And watch their reaction. Yeah. If they are happy and they are excited, you should have been in therapy a long time ago.
I hikey love that. That's fantastic.
If they're like, oh, why are you going to therapy?
Okay, I want,
You're allowed to
I want
question it.
everybody who's listening to this to try this, who is not currently in therapy, to try this.
It's a good fun one.
I
swear. If
that's
they
your
are
homework,
excited,
listeners, that to go and tell your parents, tell your family, tell your loved ones,
Whoever
I'm
you
in
trust.
therapy, see what they say.
Yeah, whoever knows about your stuff.
And then
essentially.
this is your sign. This whole podcast is your sign that you should go to therapy. This is the conclusive statement from today. Basically, is
Yes,
that all
therapy.
vets are mentally ill and everyone should have therapy.
Not all vets are mentally ill.
Oh, I would beg to differ.
I'm not saying anything's not a fact. I'm just being careful.
I'd say it's not even a secret in the profession. Mental health is a
yeah.
huge problem. Like the suicide rates in the veterinary world are
It's massive.
Yeah, it's like one of the highest in the world for any profession. It's so high to the point where we have a dedicated hotline called Vet Life, just for vets to call up if they are feeling a type of way about anything.
They're in it.
Yeah, literally.
They're in their feels.
There is a whole separate thing, but is that you're like, it's not just like Cool Samaritans. There is a vet line.
That's good. I'm glad it exists, though.
Oh, it's good that it exists, but also horrible that it has to exist, if you see what I mean. But yeah, veterinary.
It's also
mental health is
annoying with
terrible.
jobs that do lend themselves, so like therapists, vets, doctors, nurses, anything that involves you having to like emotionally put yourself on the line for a job.
Yeah, people.
Therapy should kind of be involved in the paycheck.
I really think so. I really think it should be. Because you have to deal with so much.
I feel like they should offer group therapy for free.
I think they should at least pay for the therapy that you choose, but you know, that doesn't mean saying that. Hint, hint for the person I work for.
Yeah, pay for my therapy.
Please pay for my therapy. I'm a better person for it.
Honestly, the amount of people I've wanted to reverse charge my therapy bill to.
Oh my God, I'd have a big bill for a few people.
Right? Honestly, I'm like, why do I have to pay for you treating me this way, giving me trauma, and now I have to pay to get the trauma fixed, which is what you broke. What happened to you break it, you buy it.
Literally.
Huh. Anyway, on that note, go to therapy. And it's been super fun. We're going to hang out after this.
Yes,
so.
it's going to be a good time. I'm ready for movie night and chill and
Honestly.
just having a good time.
Just vibes.
Just catching up on life.
I know.
Yeah.
So much has happened.
We don't
So little time.
We don't see each other enough.
I don't see anybody.
You need to come down and visit
Apart
me.
from Konzo.
Can't get rid of that boy.
But he doesn't even classify me as a person anymore. He's
You're
like, I'm
just-
not in a peoply mood today. I don't want to hang out with people. I'm like,
You're just an ornament in the house.
I don't exist. Which is cool. I like that. I like that he doesn't classify me as somebody he can't be around when he's emotionally
I
exhausted.
still think the way you two became friends is like the most beautiful, weird, but wonderful thing. And to y'all who may be tuning into this podcast as this may be your first episode or whatever, go back and listen to Konzo's episode.
Yeah,
it's
it's
such a
good.
blessed episode.
He's so nice.
I
He's
love
on
him.
the
I
first
adore
episode
him.
of this season as well.
Do you want to know something fun before we do sign off?
Yes.
Because 2020 was a time, and I was kind of going through it a wee bit, and I was doing things that I maybe normally wouldn't do.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, what would be a fun, wild, and wacky thing to do? I'm going to apply for Naked Attraction. I applied for Naked Attraction. I got through the interview stage. I was literally offered a place on the show. Last minute, I bottled out completely because I went, no, this is a terrible idea. What were you doing this whole time? I was just YOLOing it through the whole thing, being like, oh, I get to the next stage. Oh, I did. You know,
yeah.
But the funny thing is, where the dates worked out for when I would have been filmed,
Was his.
given the things I listed in my type of guy, likes animals, like tattoos, like someone taller than me,
Konzo.
I would have probably been in one of Konzo's pods. Isn't that the most ridiculous thing? And I didn't know Konzo at that point.
How
at
did you
all.
meet? I saw him naked. That's it.
I mean,
Imagine.
have you finally now watched that episode?
I haven't watched it yet.
You should watch it. It's good.
It's kind of.
He comes off very well in it. He
Oh,
comes off
I
like such a
don't
sweet
doubt
boy.
it. He's a sweet boy.
I love it.
He does. When people don't like Konzo, I'm like,
Oh, that's a sus sign of personality.
that's
you don't like
suspicious.
That's weird.
Yeah. But, all right, lads. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget that if you've watched it on YouTube, I really, really appreciate that. But don't forget to like go follow it on like the other things like the Apple, the Spotify. Leave a rating. Leave a rating and a review. You can write whatever you want in the review. I don't care if you like just abuse me but give me 5 stars. I don't care.
You can take it out on me. I'm a very good mental punching bag.
Do you know what? I look at the reviews at the end of this season too, and I'll do a video on the best reviews.
Oh my God, that'd be a brilliant episode.
Yeah, I think it'd be fun to read through your thoughts and feelings, guys. So if you want to be involved, go leave a review and leave a big comment. All right. I love you all. Thank you, Izzy.
Mwah.
Bye.
Bye.
If you've made it this far, thank you so much for listening. If you have any guest suggestions, topic requests, or feedback, then hit me up in the YouTube comments. Don't forget to follow the podcast so you never miss an episode, or sign up to the Patreon for even more content. Have a happy day.